Breaking news: the Labour Party is in crisis. Leaked WhatsApp messages have uncovered a hidden side of Keir Starmer's team that was meant to stay out of the public eye. The details are startling, and to put it mildly, it's not pretty. These revelations are challenging everything we thought we understood about the party's inner workings. Keep following as this story develops. Take Andrew Gwynn, for example. He used to be Labour's shadow health secretary, but not anymore. When you hear what he's been caught saying, you'll understand why. In these leaked messages, did you know that over 95% of our viewers aren't subscribed to the channel? We totally get it, life gets busy, and sometimes it's easy to forget. But here's the thing, subscribing is completely free, and it really helps us keep creating the content you enjoy. So, why not hit that subscribe button and join our community? It only takes a second, but it makes a world of difference to us. Thank you for your support. It was a quiet evening in a small town in northern England. An elderly man sat by his window, staring at the uncollected rubbish piling up in the streets. Frustrated, he did what any citizen would do: he lodged a complaint with his local MP, hoping for action. What he didn't know was that, behind closed doors, his simple request would be met with something truly shocking. Instead of addressing the issue, his MP, Gwynn, reportedly wished for his death. Yes, you read that correctly. An elected representative, whose duty is to serve the people, hoped that a constituent would die, just for daring to speak up. I hope he dies. A scandalous revelation. In a series of leaked WhatsApp messages, Gwynn was caught making this disgraceful remark about the elderly constituent. But it didn't stop there. In another message, he joked about another voter being hit by a truck. The sheer contempt these MPs showed towards the very people who elected them is astonishing. It raises serious questions: what else do they say when they think no one is watching? But Gwynn wasn't alone in this scandal. In the same WhatsApp group was another Labour MP, Oliver Ryan, who was busy making mocking remarks about people's sexuality. The Labour Party, which constantly brands itself as a champion of equality and progress, now finds itself embroiled in a scandal that suggests quite the opposite. If this is how some of their top MPs talk in private, what does it reveal about the party's true culture? Sir Keir Starmer in crisis, can he contain the damage? As these revelations spread like wildfire, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer found himself in an impossible position. He scrambled to distance himself from the scandal, issuing statements condemning the remarks. But here's the uncomfortable truth: these MPs weren't just backbenchers. Starmer personally selected them to represent Labour in Parliament. If this is the caliber of people he handpicked, what does it say about his judgment as a leader? And if this is what's happening in plain sight, what could be lurking behind the scenes? But before Starmer could even catch his breath, another political crisis was brewing, one that would turn a whole new group of voters against him. Farmers rise up, tractors bring London to a standstill. Imagine being a farmer who has worked the same land for generations, land that is more than just an asset, it's your entire livelihood. Suddenly, you hear that Labour's proposed inheritance tax changes could force you to sell off part of your land just to pay the tax bill. For many farmers, this wasn't just bad policy, it was a direct threat to their way of life. The response? Outrage. Thousands of farmers took to the streets, driving their tractors into central London, blocking roads, and bringing the capital to a standstill. The protests sent shockwaves through the government, but for Labour, it was a nightmare. The situation escalated so dramatically that Starmer was forced to cancel a planned visit to a housing development in Buckinghamshire, all to avoid facing the wrath of the farmers. A leader running scared from the very people his policies affect. It was almost comical, except it was actually happening. But the crisis wasn't just about farmers. Another major problem was emerging, and this time, it wasn't the working class turning against Labour, it was their wealthiest backers. The wealthy are abandoning Labour in droves. For years, Labour has tried to balance its image as a party for the working class while also courting Britain's wealthy elite, who have long been major donors. But a recent survey revealed a catastrophic collapse in confidence among high-net-worth individuals who once supported Labour. Their confidence in the party plummeted from 84% to just 48%. Why? Because Labour's economic plans include tax hikes that directly target the wealthy, such as increasing employer national insurance contributions and imposing VAT on private school fees. Many of Labour's wealthiest supporters are now considering leaving the UK altogether. For a party that relies heavily on financial backing, this is a political and economic disaster. But while Labour was still reeling from this financial backlash, another storm was brewing, this time, over immigration. The immigration ruling that could open the floodgates. A recent decision by the European Court of Human Rights has sparked controversy after it ruled that a UK resident could bring 6 relatives from Gaza to Britain, even though they haven't seen each other in 17 years. Many were stunned by the ruling, fearing it could set a precedent for mass migration from conflict zones. But what did Keir Starmer do? Nothing. The former human rights lawyer refused to commit to appealing the ruling, prompting critics to accuse him of prioritizing his legal background over protecting UK interests. Labour used to claim it stood for controlled immigration. But under Starmer, it appears that the party is far more interested in pleasing the legal establishment than listening to the British public. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get any worse, another scandal hit. This time, it involved China. Labour's cozy relationship with China, a security risk. For years, Labour had been one of the fiercest critics of Beijing. But recently, the party suddenly softened its stance, holding meetings with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Labour called these talks constructive, but many saw them as something else entirely, a betrayal of Britain's national security. There is even talk of a new Chinese embassy being built near the Tower of London, a potential security risk in the heart of the UK. Meanwhile, Chinese firms are reportedly being considered for involvement in British energy projects, raising alarms among MPs, even within Labour itself. Labour's shift towards economic ties with Beijing has left many questioning whether the party is sacrificing national security for financial gain. Is this the beginning of the end for Labour? Scandal after scandal, crisis after crisis, Labour finds itself in an unprecedented political freefall. Leaked messages have exposed the party's toxic culture. Farmers are furious, and their protests have shut down parts of London. Wealthy donors are pulling their support at an alarming rate. Immigration policies are causing widespread concern. Labour's sudden friendship with China is raising security fears. The party that once prided itself on being the voice of the people now seems more disconnected than ever. Labour's ship isn't just taking on water, it's heading straight for an iceberg. And Keir Starmer is at the helm, desperately trying to change course before more voters abandon ship. The question now is, can Labour recover from this turmoil, or are we witnessing the slow collapse of the party's credibility? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, the cracks in Labour's foundation are getting bigger by the day.